Olivia Mason sat alone in the school library during lunch break. She was 16 years old, with brown hair usually tied in a simple ponytail. Her glasses slipped down her nose as she read a thick book about chemistry. The other tables were filled with laughing students, but no one sat with Olivia. She was used to being alone. Olivia was different from other kids at Westlake High School. She loved science, especially chemistry, and the study of alien life possibilities, which most students found strange. Her parents both worked for a secret government lab that studied life forms from other planets. They often brought their work home, and Olivia had grown up learning things most teenagers never heard about. "Look at the weirdo with her big book again," a voice said loudly. Olivia didn't need to look up. She knew it was Heather Collins. Heather had perfect blonde hair, expensive clothes, and a mean smile. She was the most popular girl in school and the daughter of a rich tech company boss. Wherever Heather went, trouble followed for Olivia. "Probably reading about how to make friends," another voice added. This came from Kyle Bennett, Heather's boyfriend, and the school's star basketball player. His tall figure cast a shadow over Olivia's book. "Maybe it's a book about how to be normal," said Ryan Phillips, the third member of their group. Ryan was known for being good with computers. He had helped many students change their grades in the school system, for a price. Olivia tried to ignore them. She turned a page in her book and kept reading about molecular structures. "Hey, I'm talking to you," Heather said, slamming her hand on the table. "Don't you know it's rude to ignore people?" The librarian looked up from her desk, but then looked back down. She never stopped Heather or her friends. No teachers ever did. Heather's father gave too much money to the school. "I'm just reading," Olivia said quietly. "I'm not bothering anyone." Heather laughed. "Your whole existence bothers me. Right, guys?" Kyle and Ryan nodded and laughed on cue like they always did. "What happened to your chemistry homework yesterday?" Heather asked with fake concern. "I heard Mrs. Peters was really disappointed when you didn't turn it in." Olivia bit her lip. She had spent hours on that homework, but it had disappeared from her backpack. She was sure Heather had taken it. "I'll do better next time," Olivia said, trying to end the conversation. "You know what I think?" Heather leaned in close. "I think you're not as smart as everyone says. I think you're a fake." The bell rang, signaling the end of lunch. Olivia quickly gathered her things. She had science class next, which was usually her favorite, but lately it had become another place for Heather and her friends to make her life miserable. In class, Olivia tried to focus as Mrs. Peters explained a complex chemical reaction. Science made sense to Olivia in a way that people did not. Chemicals followed rules. They didn't suddenly decide to be cruel for no reason. "Olivia, can you explain to the class what happens when these compounds mix?" Mrs. Peters asked. Before Olivia could answer, she noticed a small paper airplane land on her desk. She unfolded it carefully. Inside was a crude drawing of her falling into a beaker of acid. The word "freak" was written at the bottom. "Olivia, the compound reaction?" Mrs. Peters repeated. I'm sorry," Olivia stammered. "When the compounds mix, they create a new substance with different properties than the original elements." "Correct, but I expect more detailed answers from you," Mrs. Peters said with disappointment. Heather and her friends snickered from the back of the classroom. The rest of the day dragged on slowly. Olivia kept her head down in the hallways, trying to be invisible. But invisibility was impossible when Heather had decided to make you a target. After the final bell rang, Olivia rushed to leave school. She wanted to get home where she could work on her private science projects in peace. Her parents had set up a small lab in her bedroom where she could conduct safe experiments. It was her happy place. She was almost to the exit when she heard Heather's voice behind her. "Leaving so soon, science freak? We haven't finished our conversation." Olivia walked faster, pushing through the doors and heading across the school grounds. She could hear footsteps following her. "Hey," Kyle called. "Heather's talking to you." Olivia made the mistake of cutting through the abandoned east wing of the school, thinking it would be a shortcut. The wing was under renovation and mostly empty. As she rushed down the hallway, she realized there was no one else around. Suddenly, Ryan appeared in front of her, blocking her path. She turned to go back, but Heather and Kyle were there. "What do you want?" Olivia asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "We just want to help you with your science," Heather said with a sweet smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Isn't that right, guys?" Kyle grabbed Olivia's backpack and pulled her toward the old bathroom. The door squeaked as Ryan pushed it open. The lights flickered dimly overhead, showing dirty sinks and broken mirrors. "Please," Olivia said. "I need to go home." "But we have a special experiment for you," Heather said, pulling a clear bottle from her designer bag. The liquid inside was yellow. "Since you love science so much." Olivia felt her stomach tighten. "What is that?" "Just apple juice," Heather said, but her smile showed she was lying. "Kyle had to provide a sample for his sports physical today. Isn't that right, Kyle?" Kyle laughed. "Yeah, fresh from the source." Olivia's eyes widened as she understood what was in the bottle. "That's disgusting. Let me go." "You're always talking about chemical reactions," Ryan said, taking out his phone and pointing it at Olivia. "Don't you want to be part of one?" Heather unscrewed the cap. The sharp smell made Olivia gag. "Drink it." "No," Olivia said, trying to push past them. Kyle grabbed her arms and held her still. "Drink it, or we'll post those pictures we took of you changing for gym all over social media," Heather threatened. "Your choice." Tears filled Olivia's eyes. She knew they would do it. They had done worse to other students. With shaking hands, she took the bottle. The three bullies watched her, their phones recording the moment. Olivia closed her eyes and took a small sip. The taste was horrible, and she nearly threw up. "All of it," Heather insisted. Sobbing now, Olivia drank more of the foul liquid. The bullies laughed and cheered. "See? Now you're part of a real experiment," Heather said when Olivia had swallowed enough to satisfy them. "Let's see what happens to the science freak now." They left her there, alone in the dirty bathroom. Olivia threw up in the sink, crying and rinsing her mouth out with water. She felt sick, humiliated and alone. What she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that her body was different. The strange compounds her mother had been exposed to during pregnancy had changed Olivia's DNA. Now the foreign substances entering her system would trigger something unexpected, something that would change everything. As Olivia walked home, feeling sick and defeated, she had no idea that inside her body a transformation had begun. The bullies had made a huge mistake. They had awakened something in Olivia that should have stayed dormant, and soon they would all learn what happens when you push too far. Olivia did not go to school the next day. She told her parents she was sick, which wasn't a lie. Her body felt strange. Her skin was hot to the touch, and she had spent the night tossing and turning with fever dreams. Her parents worried it might be the flu and let her stay home. But Olivia knew this wasn't the flu. Something else was happening inside her. By the afternoon, her fever had climbed higher. She lay in bed, her sheets soaked with sweat. The light coming through her window seemed too bright, and sounds from outside, cars passing, birds singing, neighbors talking, were suddenly so loud they hurt her ears. "Honey, do you want some soup?" her mother called from outside her bedroom door. The words boomed in Olivia's head like they had been shouted through a megaphone. She pressed her hands against her ears. "No, thank you," she managed to say. "I just need to sleep." When her mother left, Olivia dragged herself out of bed and to the small mirror on her dresser. Her face looked mostly the same, but her eyes seemed different. In certain angles, they almost seemed to have a faint amber glow. "What's happening to me?" she whispered. That night, the fever broke. Olivia woke up at 3:27 a.m. according to her bedside clock. The sheets were drenched, but she felt stronger, much stronger. She got up and went to the bathroom, splashing cold water on her face. In the mirror, she could see that her eyes definitely had changed. They now had a slight amber ring around the pupils. It wasn't obvious unless you looked closely, but it was there. Back in her room, Olivia noticed something else strange. The science textbook on her desk was open to a page about chemical compounds. A page she had been having trouble understanding yesterday. Now as she glanced at it, the information seemed simple, almost childish. She picked up the book and began flipping through it. Page after page of complex science now made perfect sense to her. It was like suddenly being able to read a language she had only partly understood before. Curious, she went to her small home lab setup in the corner of her room. Her parents had bought her a basic microscope for her birthday. She took a small needle and pricked her finger, placing a drop of blood on a slide. What she saw through the microscope shocked her. Her blood cells were moving differently than normal human blood cells. They seemed more active, and there were strange new structures within them. The urine, she whispered to herself. It reacted with something in my body. Olivia remembered her parents talking about an accident at their lab years ago before she was born. Her mother had been exposed to some kind of alien biological sample while pregnant with Olivia. The doctors had monitored her closely, but eventually said everything was fine. What if it wasn't fine? What if something had passed to Olivia? Something that had stayed dormant until now? Over the next few days, Olivia stayed home from school, telling her parents she still felt sick. In reality, she was testing herself, discovering new abilities that grew stronger by the hour. Her hearing had become so sharp that she could hear conversations from her parents' bedroom on the other side of the house. Her sense of smell was enhanced, too. She could identify individual ingredients in her mother's cooking from her room. But the most shocking change was in her mind. Olivia had always been smart, but now her brain worked at an amazing speed. She could read an entire textbook in an hour and remember every word. Complex math problems that would have taken her minutes to solve now took seconds. She also noticed a strange feeling when she was near electronics. When she touched her computer, she could somehow sense the flow of electricity within it. With concentration, she found she could affect it, making the screen flicker or changing the volume without touching the controls. By the end of the week, Olivia knew she had to return to school. She couldn't hide in her room forever, and she was curious to test her new abilities in the real world. Monday morning, Olivia dressed carefully in her normal clothes, jeans, a simple t-shirt, and her usual jacket. She didn't look different on the outside except for the subtle change in her eyes which most people wouldn't notice. She pulled her hair back in her usual ponytail and headed downstairs. "Feeling better?" her father asked, looking up from his coffee. "Much better," Olivia said. And it was true. She had never felt more alive. "Your teacher, Mrs. Peters, emailed about a chemistry test today. Are you sure you're up for it?" her mother asked with concern. Olivia smiled. "Yes, I think I'll do fine." The walk to school felt different. Colors seemed brighter, sounds clearer. Olivia could hear the heartbeats of people as they passed her. She could smell what they had eaten for breakfast. It was overwhelming but also exciting. As she approached the school building, she saw Heather and her friends standing near the entrance. For a moment, Olivia felt a flash of the old fear. Then she remembered what they had done to her and what she had become because of it. She walked past them, head held high. "Look who's back," Heather called out. The science freak returns. Olivia stopped and turned slowly. She looked directly at Heather, allowing just a hint of the amber glow to show in her eyes. "Hello, Heather," she said calmly. "I'm feeling much better now. Thanks for asking." Something in Olivia's voice or eyes made Heather step back slightly. Confusion crossed her face. This wasn't the reaction she expected from her victim. "Whatever," Heather muttered, but the usual bite was missing from her voice. In chemistry class, Mrs. Peters handed out the test papers. Olivia finished in 10 minutes, answering every question correctly and adding extra information that wasn't even covered in their textbook. When she handed in her paper, Mrs. Peters looked surprised. "So quickly?" she asked. "The material makes more sense to me now," Olivia replied with a small smile. Later in the cafeteria, Olivia sat alone as usual. But now she could hear every conversation in the room if she focused hard enough. She heard Ryan and Kyle talking with Heather at their table across the room. "She seems different," Ryan said. "Did you see her in math class? She solved that problem before Mr. Watson finished writing it on the board." "So what? She was always a nerd," Heather replied, but her voice had an edge of worry. "I don't know," Kyle added. "There's something weird about her now. Her eyes look strange." Olivia smiled to herself as she ate her lunch. They had no idea what they had done. The substance they had forced her to drink had activated something in her DNA, something not entirely human. That night, alone in her room, Olivia looked at her hands. She could feel the power growing in her. The bullies thought they had humiliated her. They thought they had broken her spirit. Instead, they had unleashed something extraordinary. Now, she whispered to her reflection, watching the amber glow brighten in her eyes. We'll see who's afraid of whom. She knew exactly what she would do next. Ryan Phillips would be first. The quiet computer expert who had recorded her humiliation would soon learn that technology could turn against him. Olivia smiled as she began to plan. Olivia spent the next 2 weeks watching and waiting. She sat in the back of her classes, quietly observing Ryan Phillips. She noticed his habits, how he always used the same computer in the lab, how he stayed after school on Tuesdays to work on the school's systems, and how he had secret meetings with students who later got better grades than they deserved. Ryan was smart with computers, but Olivia was now smarter. She could sense the flow of data through electronic devices. When she focused hard enough, she could even see code as patterns of light and energy. It was like having a new sense, one that humans weren't supposed to have. She also discovered something else new about herself. Her saliva had changed. When she concentrated, she could produce chemicals with her own body, chemicals that could affect other people's minds for short periods. She tested this by creating a drop of liquid that would make someone feel calm. She put it in her father's coffee one morning when he was stressed about work. Within minutes, he was relaxed and smiling. "I don't know why I was so worried," he had said. "Everything will work out fine." Olivia felt a little guilty about testing her power on her father, but she needed to be sure it worked. Now she was ready to use her gifts against the first person who had hurt her. On Tuesday afternoon, Olivia stayed after school. She knew Ryan would be in the computer lab, working on the school's systems. She walked past the open door and saw him sitting alone, typing quickly. His back was to the door. Olivia slipped inside quietly and sat at a computer 2 rows behind him. Ryan was so focused on his work that he didn't notice her. She could see what he was doing, hacking into the school's grade system to change a student's failing math grade to a B. Instead of using her keyboard, Olivia simply looked at her computer screen and concentrated. She could feel her mind connecting with the machine, reaching through the school network to Ryan's computer. With a thought, she took control of his system. Ryan's screen suddenly went blank. Then, a moment later, it came back on, but now it was displaying everything he was doing on the main projector screen at the front of the room. His illegal grade changing was being broadcast like a movie for anyone passing by to see. "What the?" Ryan jumped up from his seat, frantically trying to stop the display. Just then, Mr. Harris, the school principal, walked past the lab. He stopped when he saw what was on the projector. "Mr. Phillips?" he said sharply. "What exactly are you doing to our school's grading system?" Ryan spun around, his face white with shock. I wasn't, it looks very much like you're changing grades," Mr. Harris said, walking into the room. He hadn't noticed Olivia sitting quietly. In the back, "Someone must have hacked my computer," Ryan said desperately. "I was just checking the system." Mr. Harris crossed his arms. "Save your excuses. I can see exactly what you're doing." He looked at the screen, which now showed a list of all the grade changes Ryan had made over the past semester. "This explains a lot of mysterious grade improvements lately." Olivia watched silently as Mr. Harris ordered Ryan to his office. As they left, Ryan looked around the room wildly, trying to figure out what had happened. His eyes passed over Olivia without recognition. She was just the quiet girl in the background. When they were gone, Olivia smiled to herself. She hadn't just shown what Ryan was doing now. She had made his computer display his entire history of grade changing. His reputation was ruined. The college scholarship he had been counting on would almost certainly be taken away. The next day, the whole school was talking about Ryan's expulsion. The official story was that he had been caught hacking the school's grading system. Some students who had paid him to change their grades were also in trouble. "I can't believe Ryan was that stupid," Heather said loudly in the hallway. Olivia was at her locker nearby and could hear everything clearly with her enhanced hearing. Getting caught like that. I know, Kyle agreed. Now who's going to help me pass algebra? Olivia closed her locker and walked past them. She let her eyes briefly meet Kyle's, allowing just a hint of the amber glow to show. Kyle blinked in confusion, then looked away quickly. Phase 1 of her plan was complete. Ryan had been dealt with. Now it was Kyle's turn. Kyle Bennett was the star athlete of Westlake High. He was a basketball player with hopes of getting a sports scholarship to college. Without it, his future was uncertain. His grades weren't good enough to get into college on merit alone. Olivia knew that Kyle had a big game coming up on Friday. College scouts would be there watching him play. It was his chance to impress them and secure his future. She also knew that Kyle took supplements before every game, protein shakes and energy drinks that he believed helped his performance. His locker was always stocked with these items. On Friday morning, Olivia arrived at school early. Using her enhanced senses, she made sure no one was around the locker room. The janitor had left the door unlocked while cleaning, which was perfect for her plan. She slipped inside and found Kyle's locker. It wasn't hard to open. She could feel the mechanism with her mind and simply made it turn. Inside were his basketball uniform and, as expected, several bottles of supplements. Olivia took out a small dropper from her pocket. In it was a clear liquid she had created with her new biological abilities. The liquid contained compounds that would show up in a blood test as banned performance-enhancing drugs, but would actually do nothing to improve Kyle's playing. The substances would stay in his system for about 48 hours, long enough for the routine drug test after the big game. She carefully added a few drops to each of Kyle's supplement bottles, then closed the locker and left the room. No one had seen her that afternoon. The gym was packed with students, parents, and several college scouts. Olivia sat in the back row watching Kyle dominate the game. He scored more points than anyone else and led the team to victory. The scouts looked impressed, making notes on their clipboards. After the game, as was standard for important matches, the top players were given routine drug tests. Kyle didn't look worried. He had never taken illegal performance enhancers. Olivia knew what would happen next. In a few days, the test results would come back. Kyle would test positive for substances he didn't know he had taken. His victory would be erased, and the college scouts would cross his name off their list forever. As she left the gym, she passed Heather, who was waiting for Kyle outside the locker room. "Great game, right?" Olivia said pleasantly. Heather looked surprised that Olivia would speak to her. "What do you care? You never come to games." "I'm developing new interests," Olivia replied with a small smile. "It's important to watch people when they're at their highest point. Makes what comes after more interesting." She walked away, leaving Heather staring after her with a confused expression. 2 down, Olivia thought. 1 to go. 1 week later, the school was buzzing with more bad news. Kyle Bennett had failed his drug test. The basketball team's big win was now marked with an ugly asterisk in the record books. Kyle swore to anyone who would listen that he had never taken any banned substances. "I don't understand what happened," he told the coach in the hallway. Olivia could hear them clearly from 30 feet away with her enhanced hearing. "I've never taken that stuff. Never." The coach looked sad and disappointed. "The test doesn't lie, Kyle. Your blood showed clear evidence of performance enhancers. The scouts have already been notified." Kyle's face crumpled. "My scholarship chances are gone." The coach finished for him. "I'm sorry, son." Olivia watched Kyle walk away, his shoulders slumped. She didn't feel as happy about his downfall as she had expected. Instead, she felt a strange mix of satisfaction and emptiness. 2 of her tormentors had faced justice, but it hadn't fixed the hurt inside her. Still, she wasn't done. Heather Collins, the leader, the one who had held the bottle and laughed the loudest, she was still walking the halls like she owned the school. That would change soon. Olivia noticed that Heather had become more isolated in the past 2 weeks. With Ryan expelled and Kyle disgraced, she had lost her 2 main supporters. Other students who had once eagerly followed her lead now kept their distance as if her bad luck might be catching. Did you hear what happened to Heather's dad? A girl whispered to her friend at the desk next to Olivia during history class. No. What? The friend whispered back. Someone sent an anonymous tip to his company about him stealing trade secrets. There's a big investigation happening now. Olivia smiled slightly. That anonymous tip had been her work. During her research on Heather's family, she had discovered that Mr. Collins had indeed been stealing information from his previous employer to help his current company. All Olivia had done was point the right people toward the evidence. Heather entered the classroom late, looking tired and stressed. Her designer clothes were the same as always, but her usual confident smile was missing. She glared at Olivia as she passed her desk. "What are you looking at, freak?" she snapped. "Just watching things unfold," Olivia replied calmly. The teacher called for attention, and Heather took her seat, still throwing angry looks at Olivia. She blamed Olivia somehow. She couldn't prove anything, but she sensed that her former victim was connected to the disasters happening around her. That weekend was the winter formal dance. Normally, Olivia wouldn't have gone, but this year she had bought a ticket. It was the perfect setting for the final part of her plan. On Saturday evening, Olivia got ready for the dance. She wore a simple blue dress, nothing fancy, but it looked nice on her. Her mother was surprised to see her getting ready to go out. "A dance? That's wonderful, honey. I'm so glad you're getting involved in school activities," Olivia smiled. "I've been feeling more confident lately." Her mother hugged her. "I've noticed. You seem different, stronger somehow." "I am," Olivia said softly. When she arrived at the Yale school gym, it had been transformed with lights, decorations, and music. Students in formal wear danced and talked in groups. Heather was there in an expensive red dress, trying to hold court at a table with some other popular girls, but Olivia could tell they were only half listening to her. Olivia got 2 cups of punch from the refreshment table and walked directly to Heather's table. The conversation stopped as she approached. "What do you want?" Heather asked coldly. "I thought we could talk," Olivia said, offering one of the punch cups. "Peace offering." Heather looked at the cup suspiciously. "Why would I take anything from you, freak?" "Because you once asked me to drink something you offered," Olivia replied. Quietly, the other girls at the table exchanged uncomfortable looks, some of them having heard rumors about what had happened in the bathroom weeks ago. "I don't know what you're talking about," Heather said, but her voice shook slightly. "I think you do," Olivia said, her eyes starting to glow amber. This time she didn't try to hide it. "You gave me something to drink in the East Wing bathroom. You and Kyle and Ryan recorded it." The other girls at the table stood up and moved away, not wanting to be part of this conversation. Soon Heather and Olivia were alone at the table. "You've been behind all of this, haven't you?" Heather whispered, a hint of fear in her voice. "What happened to Ryan and Kyle? My dad's problems at work, somehow you did all of it." Olivia placed the cup of punch in front of Heather. "Drink it." "No way," Heather said, pushing the cup away. "You put something in it, didn't you? Like you did to me?" Olivia finished for her. "Maybe. Maybe not. The only way to know is to drink it." Heather stared at the cup, then back at Olivia's glowing eyes. "What happened to you? What are you?" "I'm what you created," Olivia said simply. "When you forced me to drink that day, it changed me. You have no idea what you woke up inside me." As she spoke, Olivia focused her mind on the DJ booth across the room. With her new abilities, she could control electronic devices. She sent a signal to the computer controlling the music and video display. Suddenly, the music stopped. The large screen that had been showing music videos changed to show a different video, the recording of Olivia in the bathroom, being forced to drink from the bottle while Heather, Kyle, and Ryan laughed. Everyone in the gym turned to watch. Gasps and murmurs filled the room as students realized what they were seeing. Teachers rushed toward the DJ booth trying to stop the video, but Olivia's mental control kept it playing just long enough. When the screen finally went dark, all eyes turned to Heather. Her face had gone white. The crowd of students parted as Principal Garcia walked straight toward her. "Ms. Collins," he said sternly. "My office. Now." Heather stood up, shaking. I didn't That video was, now, Principal Garcia repeated, as Heather was led away. She looked back at Olivia with a mixture of fear and anger. Olivia simply watched, her expression calm. Heather never drank the punch. She never knew that it contained nothing harmful at all. The real revenge wasn't physical, it was psychological. Now Heather would always wonder and worry about what might have been in that cup, just as Olivia had been forced to wonder what she had been made to drink that day in the bathroom. The next Monday, Olivia heard that Heather's parents were transferring her to a private school. Her reputation was destroyed, her friends were gone, and her family was being investigated for corporate crimes. Her perfect life had fallen apart completely. Olivia had won, but as she sat alone in the cafeteria, watching students whisper about the events at the dance, she wondered what victory really meant. She had gotten revenge, but she was still alone. Spring came to Westlake High School. Trees around the campus turned green and flowers bloomed in the gardens. 4 months had passed since the winter formal dance. 4 months since Heather Collins had left the school in disgrace. Olivia Mason sat in Principal Garcia's office, facing him across his desk. She had asked for this meeting herself. "You wanted to see me?" Principal Garcia said, looking curious. In recent months, Olivia had become one of the school's top students. Her grades were perfect, and teachers often commented on her amazing insights in class. "Yes," Olivia said. "I want to talk about starting an anti-bullying program at our school." Principal Garcia looked surprised. "That's a very good idea, but why this sudden interest?" Olivia chose her words carefully. "I've seen what bullying can do to people, how it can change them." She didn't mention that she had been a victim herself. She didn't need to. The video from the winter formal had made that clear to everyone. "I think we need a program that doesn't just punish bullies but helps them understand why they act that way," she continued. "And one that gives more support to victims." Principal Garcia studied her face. "This is very mature thinking, Olivia. What brought this on?" Olivia thought about the past few months. After Heather left, Olivia had expected to feel happy, but instead she felt empty. Her revenge had changed nothing inside her. The hurt was still there. She had realized something important. Becoming like the people who had hurt her wasn't healing. It was making her into something she didn't want to be. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she told the principal, "about power and how people use it. The bullies who hurt me thought they were powerful because they could make me afraid. I don't want to be like that." Principal Garcia nodded slowly. "I think a student-led anti-bullying program could be very effective. Are you willing to head it up?" "Yes," Olivia said. "I'd like to start right away." Over the next few weeks, Olivia used her new confidence to build the program. Students who would never have spoken to her before now listened to her ideas. Teachers supported her efforts. She created a system where younger students could safely report bullying, and older students were trained to mediate conflicts. One day, as she was putting up posters about the new program in the hallway, she heard a familiar voice behind her. "So you're some kind of hero now?" Olivia turned to see Kyle Bennett standing there. He looked different, less confident, his shoulders slightly hunched. After the drug test scandal, he had lost his place on the basketball team and his hopes for a sports scholarship. "I'm not trying to be a hero," Olivia said. "I'm just trying to make things better." Kyle looked at the poster she was hanging. It showed students helping each other with the words, "Strength comes from lifting others up," printed at the top. "You know what happened to me," he said. "The drugs in my system. That was you, wasn't it?" Olivia met his eyes steadily. "What would you do if I said yes?" Kyle was quiet for a moment. "I don't know. I've had a lot of time to think since then. About the kind of person I was, the things I did." He looked away. "The things we did to you." "And?" Olivia prompted. "And I'm sorry," he said, the words coming out with difficulty. "What we did to you in that bathroom, it was cruel, wrong. I went along with it because I was afraid of losing my place with Heather and the popular kids. That's no excuse, but it's the truth." Olivia hadn't expected this. In all her plans for revenge, she had never considered that one of her tormentors might actually feel remorse. "What are you doing now?" she asked. Without basketball? Kyle gave a small, sad laugh. Trying to get my grades up. Turns out I'm going to need to use my brain to get into college after all. He paused. I'm working with a tutor. Turns out I'm not as dumb as Heather always said I was. Olivia thought for a moment. The anti-bullying program needs more people, especially people who understand both sides. You want me to join? Kyle asked, clearly shocked. After what I did? Because of what you did, Olivia corrected him. You know how it works from the inside, and you seem to understand now why it was wrong. Kyle studied her face. Your eyes. They look different than they used to. Olivia blinked, suddenly aware of the amber glow that sometimes showed in her eyes when her emotions were strong. We've all changed. 2 weeks later, Olivia received a surprising email. It was from Heather Collins, now at an expensive private school in another state. The message was short. I know it was you who ruined everything for me. I don't know how you did it, but I know it was you. I hate you for it. But I also can't stop thinking about why you did it, about what we did to you first. My therapist says I need to face what I did wrong, so I'm sorry. Not that it matters. Olivia read the email several times. It wasn't exactly a heartfelt apology, but it was something. Heather was at least facing what she had done. Olivia decided not to respond. Some chapters were better left closed. That night, Olivia sat in her bedroom looking at her reflection in the mirror. The amber glow in her eyes had become a permanent part of her now, though most people didn't notice it unless they looked closely. The changes in her body had continued over the months. Her mind could now process information at incredible speeds. She could influence electronic devices with a thought. The chemicals her body produced had become more refined. She could create compounds that might revolutionize medicine someday. Her parents had noticed some of these changes but attributed them to normal teenage development. Olivia hadn't told them the truth, not yet. Maybe someday. She picked up a small notebook where she had been writing down her discoveries about her new abilities. There were pages of chemical formulas, biological observations, and notes about things she could sense that others couldn't. What am I becoming? She whispered to her reflection. She didn't have all the answers, but she knew one thing. The bullies had tried to break her spirit, and instead they had triggered an evolution inside her. They had meant to hurt her, but they had inadvertently given her gifts beyond imagination. As she looked out her window, at the night sky, Olivia wondered if there were others like her somewhere. People with dormant alien DNA waiting to be awakened. Maybe someday she would find them. For now, though, her path was clear. She would use her powers not for revenge, but to protect others from experiencing the pain she had felt. She would help build a community where strength came from kindness, not cruelty. The next morning, as Olivia walked through the school hallways, younger students smiled and waved at her. Teachers nodded with respect. Even former friends of Heather and Kyle treated her with a new kind of deference. But it wasn't fear she saw in their eyes. It was admiration. The girl who had once been a victim was now a leader. The outcast had become someone who brought people together. The bullied had become a protector, and if sometimes when emotions ran high, people noticed a strange amber glow in Olivia Mason's eyes, well, everyone had their quirks, didn't they? No one needed to know that the quiet girl walking among them was perhaps the next step in human evolution. That would be her secret, at least for now. But someday when the world was ready, Olivia Mason would share her gifts, and the universe would never be the same again.